digital solutions for your business.
When the going gets tough.
Going gets tough.
When the going gets tough.
DB results.
When the going gets tough.
DB results.
Well, there you go.
I'm Ilana Razbash, and this is Radio Architecture.
Good evening from beautiful Bunurong country. We are broadcasting to you live on Radio Karam from deep in the ancient Karam swampland on unceded Eastern Kulin Nation land. It's a dark and stormy evening tonight, everyone. Stay safe, stay dry, drive carefully on the roads, and thank you so much for tuning in to another live broadcast of Radio Architecture with Ilana Razbash. If you'd like to join the conversation tonight, as always, please text us in the studio on 0493 213 831. We'd love to have you with us. My conversation partner this evening is Guido Melo, an Afro-Brazilian linguistics postgraduate research candidate at Victoria University in Naarm, Melbourne. He is also the Vice President of African Studies Group at Melbourne University. He holds positions as a board member of the Incubate Foundation. He is a multilingual author, and his words can be found in Australia in Overland Magazine, Mean Gin Quarterly, Kill Your Darlings, Peril Magazine, Colour Luminary Magazine, ABC, Mantissa Poetry, Ascension Magazine, SBS Voices, SBS Portuguese, Cordite Poetry Review, and Voz Limpa Poesia. In Africa, he writes for Africa is a Country magazine. Guido is a contributor to books such as Growing Up African in Australia, Black Ink 2019, Racism Stories on Fear, Hate and Bigotry by Sweatshop 2021, Resilience, a celebration of poetry, fiction and essays from Mascara Literary Review, Ultimo Press 2022, Povo, Sweatshop 2024, The Rutledge Handbook of Media Education Futures Post-Pandemic by Rutledge 2022, and the Handbook of Critical Whiteness, Deconstructing Dominant Discourse Across Disciplines, Springer 2023. Welcome to the program, Guido.
Thank you for having me, Ilana.
I can't wait to get started with our conversation this evening. And one thing your bio didn't capture, though, which is an incredible list of publications and work, is your thesis that you're currently working on that asks the question, can bias embedded in image generative AI systems influence public perception? And this is such an important, such a critical topic that we'll get to later in the discussion. But first, I want to ask my question that I really like to ask all my guests. And that's, what's your earliest memory of a building or place?
Well, I grew up in Brazil, in a town, a city in the northeast of Brazil. The name of the city is called Salvador, but it's not the country El Salvador. It's just Salvador, which means basically the translation is the savior. You know, those Portuguese and Spanish were really into Catholicism.
Yeah.
And they name a lot of things out of saints and out of Jesus or variations of Jesus. And Salvador, incidentally, is the first capital of Brazil. So it was the capital of Brazil until the late 1700s. So for 1500s, when Brazil was invaded, we grew up saying discovered, by the Portuguese, and until, so for almost 200 years. And I've crossed the road from my building. There's a lighthouse, and it's possibly the most famous lighthouse in Brazil, and it's called Barra Lighthouse, or in Portuguese we say Farol da Barra. And it's black and white on a tower, so with stripes of black and white, and it has a base that's kind of like a rectangle, maybe a trapezium to be more accurate, and it's like a fort. So there's cannons pointing to the ocean, and a big door facing, the city, and that was the way the Portuguese could defend those lands, because at the time the Portuguese, the Dutch, the French, the Spanish, even the English, but in less extent on that specific part of the world, were fighting for those lands that they decided, arbitrarily decided were up for grabs. And that's my earliest memory. I spent the first 7 years of my life in that city, across from that building, and I think it's imprinted in my memory. I spent so many days there, and next to that is a beach where my mom would take me every day. She was a working from home mom, and I think it's fair to say from birth to the age of 7, I virtually went to the beach every day.
Amazing. What an absolute blessing to be so close to the ocean.
Yeah.
Was that lighthouse operational?
Yes, it's operational right now. It's still operational.
Still operational to this day.
Yeah.
When did you move to Rio de Janeiro?
Well, so my father was part of the Air Force, and he was a meteorologist. So he worked on the airport towers, predicting the weather for the traffic, to the air traffic. And when I turned 7, he decided there was time to come back to his city of birth. So he was born in Rio. My mother is from Salvador. Well, she's not from Salvador. She's from country of that state, but she moved to Salvador. And my father decided to move because he thought there would be better opportunities for us. And yeah, we moved at 7. That was the first time I flew on an airplane. I flew on an old English airplane. It's called Avro. And the Avros, I'm pretty sure there was some Avros fighting World War II, but not the one I fought, the one I flew. But yeah, the historians out there might know a bit more. Yeah, and I remember not liking it, Rio, because the kids were smarter and faster and more violent. And I remember the first 5 years of Rio was like, it was very difficult. It was like hell,
Socially at school?
Well, at school, at the playgrounds. It's really hard if you're not from the last century, if you're not born in the last century like I am. It can be very hard to imagine the world how it used to be, especially in different countries. I imagine there's some similarities with the Australian reality, but our parents just threw us in the streets. Like there was no helicoptering parenting.
Yeah.
You would just go to the streets, and you fend for yourself. I was 9, and these kids, you have to obey. It was kind of
Was Rio safe then?
Yeah, well, it was safe. The first time someone stole from me, I was 10. Well, like a kid took my watch. I had one of those digital calculator watch, the Casio ones, and this kid took it from me. But yeah, somewhat safe. I think I wouldn't. I would take it that I would take 1986 Rio any time of the day if I could come back.
Really?
I mean, safe wise, you know.
You've written about your father a lot and some of those early memories, and he always
I
wanted
do.
you to leave. He actually wanted to send you away. Say more about that.
Well, I guess so. Many people often don't understand how close to slavery families can be, like, you know, in Brazil or in the United States. Like, slavery in Brazil, African slavery, only finishing 1888. So really close to the 20th century. Compared to the United States, it's almost 100 years later, right? United States, you know, from memory, the United States have 300 years of slavery. We had 400, right? So, or close to 400. And my great-grandmother was born in semi-slavery, and my grandmother worked cleaning and washing and ironing in a farm, basically in a plantation, you know, in the outskirts of Rio. My father didn't have shoes to go to school, and this is, you know, it was very hard. And when I was 13, it was kind of I often say to my son that it was kind of my bar mitzvah in a way. He took me to travel across the northeast of Brazil. We were already leaving Rio, and he gave me the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, and that book shaped my life in the sense that I understood then that nations were made up. You know, I could wake up in Poland or Canada, you know, or India tomorrow, and I would be just a worker, you know,
Yeah.
or just a student or whatever. And I think that comprehension made me not be too attached to Brazil intellectually.
Mm.
And also the fact that we moved a lot. You know, the first time I moved was to Rio, but then I moved to so many. I probably even over 18 addresses
Wow.
between the age of birth and 20. So we kept moving around. And yes, I was really detached. I was like, you know, I remember thinking, I was maybe 16, and I remember thinking, crying because I lost some friends, but, you know, maybe a day later thinking, oh, you know what, I'll get new ones.
Yeah.
And it always works. And I always tell, every time I break up or move or something changes, I know because it's true. The next one will be better. You know, the next job will be better. The next partner will be better. The next city
Yes.
will be better.
That's such an important perspective. Have you found that it's given you strength in your life?
Yeah, you know things gonna end. I like everyone else. Anxiety is very difficult to control. But I remember we lived in this compound in Rio. There was a military compound, so it was a gated community. The only Air Force folk could live, and their children. And then in there was a school. There was an Air Force club, a military school. There was very hard discipline, and there was a military police. Even the police couldn't talk to us. We had to. I remember I didn't like leave the community because when the police outside harassed me, I was no one. But in the compound, I was like, you know, do you know who my dad is? and and we had this giant backyard. And in my backyard, there was 3 mango trees, 2 banana trees, a guava tree, sugar cane, and I would say from my mind, from memory, maybe 15, 20 meters long backyard and then maybe 5 or 6 wide. It was a long backyard and big. And during the spring, during the autumn, the entire mango trees leaves would fall. And my mom, I'm the eldest of 5 siblings. 5 with me, so there's 4 more. And my mom would make me clean the entire backyard. And it was the worst job. It would take hours. Ilana, would take so many hours. But in the end, I was allowed to put fire on it. So I would make maybe 2 or 3 piles. And I would bring some old newspapers, put the matches on the newspaper, put underneath, and then it would burn everything. And it was so joyful to watch those things burn because it's like, I finished.
The celebration for all your hard work.
So every year I did that. And the second year I remember looking, it felt like there was more even leaves than the year before. But I remember breathing and thinking, remember the feeling of burning the fire, because eventually you're going to get there. So then I would do it, and this is times before you couldn't put your mind, like today, you can listen to a podcast, you can listen to music, you can be on the phone with your friends. There was it was total loneliness, but knowing that at the end, eventually things would eventually finish. It was a calming, soothing feeling.
They say it's becoming popular with the younger generations now to return to that quiet and to not augment your experience with headphones and music. And even in popular culture now, people are talking about taking public transport with no headphones and how that's becomes a revolutionary concept for the new generation that never knew it.
Yeah. It's the ability to observing outside, paying attention to what's happening. It's so beautiful, and it formed so much of my character. I used to take the bus in Rio. I wanted to discover the whole town. I was like, I want to explore. And then, again, remember, there's no helicopter parents. My parents would not know. I don't think my mom even know this story today. Probably, first time she'll be listening to it. But I would take a bus to any destination and then just go for an hour and a half to the end and then come back. Just so I could see how the things, I would be watching the streets. That was like the cinema. That was the Netflix of my time, was watching.
Do you think you were alone in that urban curiosity and that interest to effectively be a young urbanist observing the city?
I used to think it was my idea, but I saw this film by this famous singer, Brazilian singer. His name is Tim Maia. And Tim Maia, on his biography, he also says that he used to do that. He used to travel around the city doing the bus. I think it's maybe other people typed into that. It was a concept,
Creative way of thinking, creative way of living.
Well, we were bored, but there was
nothing else.
There was nothing. What else you could do? And if I thought there was
What did that time teach you?
There are many people going many places. and you're lucky to be able to observe. And well, looking through my specific perspective, in hindsight, I'm lucky that people could have been mean to me. I was very young, and people didn't do anything. I'm just lucky. Um, well, I learned that people can be nice. I think people can be evil, but I survived all of that without a scratch.
Maybe you had a brief chance to experience the best of people, the best of those moments. So then eventually you fulfilled your father's wish or instruction, and you left. How did the journey to Australia unfold?
Yeah, so my detachment from Brazil was very established on me, and I met my partner who was from Australia, and they suggested that we came, and I moved it was really quick. Like, we were together less than a year, and we decided to do that. And what I liked is that because I was so detached, like, I'm a very interesting expat, because a lot of people that migrate, based on anecdotal experience of me talking to other people, they have doubts about. I had no doubts. I was so certain this was my place. And it's like what I read this article on The Age once about arranged marriage, and how this Indian woman, she arranged marriage, and she was arguing that there was good things on it.
Yes.
And then I read with an open heart, and I agree with her. Like, you can learn to love someone in the long run if you want to. And I decided I would love Australia eventually. I just made it. And I watched the footy. So I moved here. And the footy, it was on live TV. Like, you could watch so many games every weekend. We had Foxtel. And I watched the footy every weekend, every game.
Did it help?
Yeah, I learned. Like, it took me a month. It was very quick. Like, I just decided I would learn, and I learned.
And you're right, how you picked the St Kilda Football Club within a week for yourself.
Wow, yeah, that was I picked because it's a Brazilian tradition. You usually pick, the team, the in-laws team, And I thought, I don't have a team. I'll pick the in-laws team. Huge mistake, but I have to stick with it. And then now I pass to my own kids. But so I came here, and I decided that I would like it, and I decided I would like the food. I decided I would like everything. I decided I would like the people. So it was really, I never resisted. And because I never resisted, everything was so natural. Like, I got my first job in March. Then I got another one in April. And by the end of the year, I was in a Christmas party with my new employers, and I was like, I was Australian. I was like, I didn't have, my accent was terrible back then. But yeah, like I didn't look back. I didn't even want to come back to Brazil. Like, and it took me 2 years to return, but I would have taken more because I was so decided that I would like. And I think I approach everything in my life like that. I want to like academia, and I do. And I want to like, I decided to be a writer. It wasn't a call. I just decided I will be a writer. What does it take? And then people say, oh, there's this course at the university called professional writing and editing. And that's a good way. And I say, okay, I'll take it. I took it.
You took the course, yeah.
And then on the first year, I was publishing several places. And they wrote an article at my university about my success. I became the success story of the course, and I came next year to give a talk on how successful I was on the course. It was just a decision.
So it's all mindset. You really believe it's all mindset?
Well, I think a lot is. I think it's important to acknowledge certain privileges, like in my case, economical stability that I had. Maybe I'm an able person. I'm a cis man. There might be doors that might open for me. They might not open for other people, and I appreciate and respect it. I think it's always important to remember, because or else you are blaming other people on their failures when maybe it's not their failures. They just didn't have the right opportunity. And I think it's important to be fair. But I think mindset can help a person, but it's not everything. I think luck is everything, because you can just, die or get a disease or being told no. And opportunity, opportunity and mindset.
Do you think you're an optimist by nature?
I am absolutely an optimist by nature. I think everything is going to be fine. I think people are good. I believe I wake up every morning and I think, wow, how amazing, another morning. And when people are in despair, I try to say, what is this in the context of everything? It's just this is your problem, and I acknowledge it's real. And you can complain. I do complain. I'm not perfect, but I'm optimist that things will be better.
Why is that important for a writer and a researcher as well as an academic?
Well, I don't know if that's important for a writer. I think a lot of writers are pessimistic. I think a lot of my friends are super pessimistic. I think it's important for me because I like to believe in the hope that things can be better, because with knowledge that things are so bad, with knowledge that things can be so awful and people can be so mean and violent, I choose to focus on the miracles of every day. A birth is a miracle. A flower, the rain, the smells that comes from the grass. These are all miracles that we forget to acknowledge.
That's so true.
It's like I'm on this journey, right? So last year around this time, I got, the doctor said, we have to test. You might have cancer, like that, straight up. And then I did some tests and whatever, and I didn't have cancer. So great, right? But then he said, listen, whatever you're doing for your life, take this as a wake-up call. You have to figure out something. You have to change. And I was huge. I was over 100 kilos, and I was very unhealthy, very unfit. I haven't exercised for years and properly. Well, I was trying. And I decided that I would take that control back and I would do it. And so far, since February, I lost 25 kilos.
Incredible.
And it's our optimism. I set small goals. So when I had 105 kilos, I said, what? I just want to get to 100. And it took weeks. It was so difficult. and painful. So when I got to 100, I was reasonable. I was like, I just want to get to 96 and a 91. And it was like that. And it was one small goal at a time. And the goals got shorter and shorter. You know, when I got 84, I just said, I just want to get to 82.
One step at a time.
That's it. And we can control a lot. We cannot control, again, lucky. We can control that. We cannot control how others perceive us or think about us or judge us or prejudge us. But we can control what we give back, you know. And I'm not saying I'm not a Christian, you know. Like, I'm not going to give my face so someone else can slap. I'm just saying, you know, they can slap. I might slap back, but I might also, you know, maybe fly over there, you know, and do my revenge in a different way.
Yeah. What inspired the pivot into academia?
It's I think my father wanted to be an academic. He was a thinker, right? He had the biggest library ever. And I was always jealous. And I think my library maybe it's not as big as his, but it's growing. And I think I want to finish what he started, you know, in an indirect way. And I wanted to be able to contribute my ideas, my vision ideas. They are his and my mom's both. They are my way of perceiving the reality. I wanted to share that with humanity.
Yeah.
And there's something very important that I accepted, is that maybe my influence on humanity may never be perceived academically until 100 years from now or 50, and I might never see it. But if I'm doing it with vigor, with honesty, and giving my best, that's okay. Then it's fine if I don't see that advancement. You know, often I find books of dead people, you know. Franz Kafka influenced me. You know, Frantz Fanon influences me. Well, and Marx and Simone de Beauvoir and Rosa Parks. People influence me. They're dead.
Yeah.
But they lived with vigor. They live with their honesty. And once you accept that for your writing and for your thinking, then the writing becomes easier. Because I'm future-proofing the writing. I'm writing with so much honesty that's like, if I never see the results of it, someone hopefully will.
I want to pick up on that word that you're writing with so much honesty, because when you're holding that truth, when you're holding your truth or what you know to be the truth or the fact in what you're investigating and studying, then it couldn't be anything else, could it? There's no other alternative to those words or to those ideas. That is what you're pursuing. That's what you have to put down on that bit of paper.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I was speaking with someone and they said to me, you know, you're writing about yourself. It's always about yourself. You know, you are in everything that you're creating.
How could you not be?
Because I thought maybe I was being third-party observant, but it's basically portraits of me. So many portraits of me in a form of text. And I wanted people to see everything I'm sharing is it's human. It's the human experience, and I try so hard to be empathetic to even the people that I'm criticizing. And I criticize people, but I criticize with the humanity, understanding that someone else will criticize me one day, and hopefully they'll be forgiving enough to understand that my mistakes or my blind spots were honest, and I'll be grateful for them pointed out.
That's an exemplar perspective of immense intellectual humility.
Well, in practice, it's different, because sometimes it's very hard to keep in practice what you intellectually know to be truth. And I think, I would like to say that I would like to follow more my advice than I give, but I strive for it. I strive for that humility. I strive for that honesty, and I think I have to accept that. That's if I try enough, it's fair enough. Fair go.
What's your advice to young writers and young researchers?
Well, it depends. If you want to change humanity, work on something that you can make a difference. You'll be surprised on what your research can lead. Like I've seen people changing policies. In Australia, just by writing a story or writing a book or writing a novel. So it's possible. And if you have an idea out there, don't think of the money. Well, again, I'm talking about from a privileged perspective of someone that has somewhat financial stability. But I think if it's possible for you to write without focusing on the financials, I think you're gonna get something much more honest and much more truthful for you.
That's probably right of all creative practice.
Well, yeah, if that's possible for you. And I understand sometimes it's not, and you do what's best for you to get that, to pay that rent.
Let's pivot to your thesis.
Yeah.
So AI bias in image-generated systems. Are you worried about AI?
No, I'm not. I think AI's artificial intelligence is first of all, let's backtrack a little bit. There's no intelligence, right? It's artificial data sets, large language models who are utilizing information that they were receiving to really randomly, or as Emily Bender and Timothy Quibrew says, stochastically feedback information for you. So, we have to remember that these answers are just repeat answers that, mathematically speaking, make sense. So the AI is not, artificial intelligence is not real. Those models are not real. They're not human. They're not thinking. There's no Terminator scenario, no AI by Stanley Kubrick or whatever film you have seen. None of this is gonna ever happen. there's no robots taking over the world. That's not going to happen. It's all humans controlling algorithms. Um, so the simple answer is no. I'm not afraid of artificial intelligence on that sense. Again, on the Terminator type of sense. But what I'm afraid is automation bias, for example. And automation bias is, and it can be the simpler way for me to explain. I assume most people have driven a car, or if not driven, using a map on their phones. And the map tells you to go from A to B. But the map does not know that on that day, it's raining. On that day, there's a construction happened on that street, or there was an accident. It does not know that. It takes a while to know that. I know there's tools that can show you that, but in the beginning, it doesn't know. And the automation bias tells you to go to that direction, even though it's going to put you in harm or in harm's way. Humanity is what goes, look at the place, see there's a puddle of water, and the way is blocked because there was an accident, there was a bike accident, whatever, and then goes around, right? So that, would rely before, would maybe, like many people have grew up or seen, like ABC radio or radios in their own cities and countries where they say, hey, the traffic today, it's not so good at that freeway, because they would be watching it. And they can see things in advance, whilst the computer, the large language model is just going to tell you to go to that way. So that's the simplest way to understand the automation bias. But that can happen when automation bias will not, for example, hire women for certain jobs, will not hire people with ethnic sound names for certain jobs, will not hire people, hospitals will assume that people have specific diseases because they're from a specific demographic or racial group or gender group. So
can we train the large language models out of that?
Well, the problem is that most of the data was scraped from, so like there's several companies that trained. OpenAI is the most famous one. That's the owner of ChatGPT, but everyone else, there's Azure from IBM and others and others. What happens is when these were trained, they were trained all over the internet, and they were taking all the information available. So a lot of the information, there's a few problems with the information. One, the information is Anglophonic or Anglocentric. So that means for people, it's English language. Two, it's mostly focused on the United States and Europe. So the English language, but mostly the United States. So you have places like Reddit, blogs. So it's basically the information that's mostly men put out, mostly white men, mostly English speaking. So it thinks like them. And I'm not saying that thinking like a white man is wrong. I'm saying AI think like white men only, heterosexual white men only, and pretending or alleging that has the answer for the entire humanity. That lies the problem.
Yes.
So I repeat, it's not an attack. It's not an identity politics. It's just like those informations are mostly provided by one specific group, by one specific gender, by one specific language. And there's a problem with that. So what I think we should have is new data sets. I actually advocate for either state-sponsored large language models or heavily regulated, legislated large language models, where you have more voices, more languages, more imagery, more information that can really supply the whole. Can you imagine if the entire humanity, with the entire way of thinking, could provide input on what artificial intelligence could do? We would find so many better solutions.
And not to mention indigenous ways of thinking and indigenous knowledge.
I absolutely think of indigenous way of thinking,
Yeah.
indigenous way of knowledge. And like, for example, I think you could have an artificial intelligence to say that you could say to an AI tool, say, hey, based on the Victorian Aboriginal way of thinking, how would I find a solution for this? And then you have a bank of information that's provided, that's like somewhat certified, because it's impossible to certify all indigenous knowledge. But let's say something even more modern. Let's say something even more easy to grasp. Let's say based on the, the Indonesian perspective of, this situation, how could we find a solution for that event? And I think you could have a lot of information that, and even Indonesia is like all different peoples and whatever, but like we should be able to put that. So the way my thesis proposes, really my outcome, like one of my suggestions is that the AI tools ask more questions. So if you ask, please show me an academic professor, and then instead of the AI show a white man, which it does, I tested it, you should say, do you have a preferred gender for this academic? And then the person will say, I prefer to be a cis woman. Okay, does this cis woman have a particular race? No, I don't mind. You can pick a random, or yes, I would prefer her to be East Asian appearance. Okay. Does she have any disability? She has any disabilities? And then, oh no, I prefer her to be, with no disabilities. Like the AI should,
Ask more questions.
ask more questions. So that's the way of. But then people wouldn't be practical, right? Wouldn't be practical.
Yeah.
I understand. So people could opt out. But for me, it would be practical. And I'm sure there's billions of people. Like one of the people I interview is an African student, and they told me that if they want to design a racial person that wasn't white, they have to specify. Whereas for white, it's just the default. It's just say student at a university, and you get a man, and you get a white man.
And you get the AI hair and 6 fingers.
Yeah. Well, he's getting better and better with that. But that's very unfortunate. So I think there should be an option. So that's or there should be a big disclaimer where every time an image is generated, because that's my thesis, every time an image is generated, there should be a dot asterisk underneath saying, these data are mostly anglophonic, mostly Eurocentric, based on majority white nations and majority white people, and therefore the information provided, the output of this will be based on those bias. So then everyone, if you put that every time, people will be reading it, and then hopefully they'll be like, okay, yes, I'm getting a white guy or a white woman or whatever. It's usually a white guy. But I understand there's a bias here, because I'm worried that the influence of that reality might become what people think is real. And they might not be able to imagine a disabled African woman teaching as a professor at an university. And if people can erase these people from the world, then that's the danger. So the real danger is not Terminator. The real danger is the erasure of entire populations because the AI cannot fathom that they are worth it to be designed, to be shown.
Very poignant warning. What about intellectual property? Has your research touched on that as well?
No, it doesn't. I think it's another issue because people are not getting paid and the data being used to train. Who knows? Maybe my pieces have been used in training because I've written things that are online. But I think you as an architect and others, I think that's something that it's very worrying, and I don't even think there is a solution like a financial compensation. It would have to be a worldwide class action against who? Against OpenAI. I guess it would have to be very organized, and yeah, it's a problem.
I'm trying to hold, but both hope, but also certainty, in that I believe in the power of architecture and I believe in the power of good design, and the importance of human decision making behind that, and how to really create something for the human condition. We need all our feelings, all our thoughts, all our emotions, all our critical thought that no model could possibly replace. And so maybe one day AI will optimize floor plans better than people. But that refinement, beyond the initial concept, that creating something that's bespoke for the individual, for the organization, for that client, or really integrating the big ideas, because that's what architecture is all about, ideas. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe it's not true. Maybe we are all, it'll turn out different. But I really believe that can't be replaced by AI. And architects doing that work.
Yeah, I cannot think that AI tool could design the opera house. For example, I don't think it could. But even if it could design, there are smells. There are wind, and all of this information. There are weather patterns, tides. I think you need a human to be there to understand, what is it looking at, what is it looking against, what is on the side, what is on the other side. I think with the artificial intelligence that we have today, and even I cannot see in the future an artificial intelligence that can tell what is the person that commissioned you to do the work is feeling, because they might be scratching their head. The artificial intelligence is not, it cannot watch the eye movements. I think you're always going to need an element of humanity for designs. What these tools can do is speed up the processes. For example, the calculations you might need to do, it can speed it up, and I see no problem with that. We use Excel, we use Word, we use our phones. Those things, they haven't replaced human creativity. But yeah, I wouldn't be worried to be replaced as long as you can keep up with education. I think a lot of the large amounts of the world population will be dumped out of the workforce because they cannot keep up. And not to their fault, it's just circumstantially.
All the menial tasks, all the administrative tasks, even writing code now, programmers.
Yeah, it's being slowly replaced by the possibility. But there are creative solutions that require humans, and we have to remember that. And to be fair and honest, and I have to be honest, I don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. But so far, it's been 2 years since ChatGPT, and things are still moving okay.
But we're still all right.
We're still here.
Do you foresee kind of a population of the workforce becoming AI managers of sorts, where we're facilitating the editing and the refinement of work that is generated by AI?
Well, yes, in a sense, to create a podcast, for example, now, I use several AI tools to help with subtitles and transcriptions and this. Like before, I had to transcribe. I've recorded my mom's story on audio on WhatsApp, and I had to pay a person to transcribe it. And now an AI tool can do it, and can even give me subtitles. So we're already using tools right now. They are making things a bit faster, a bit better. But the human decision to ask the question, like you asking me a question, that's human. AI would Google me. There's this tool. I forgot the name now. My God. But there's this tool that you can ask. I think it's called Perplexity.
Yeah,
AI.
Perplexity, yeah.
And you can ask any question about anyone, and it will scrape the hells of internet to find any information about you. And I've been finding profiles of people that I wanted to know more about it for whatever reason in that. And then that helps me with conversation starters. But the conversation starters have to still sound genuine and human,
Still has to be in your voice, and you have to ask the question and be curious and be connected.
Yeah. So the AI can help you with that. It's like it would take me hours of Google, whilst the AI just prepares here's the dossier of this person for you.
So quick, so instant, almost frustratingly perfect, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm mindful of the time, so I'll ask my last question. And that's, what gives you hope? Although I feel you shared so much with us already about your wonderful optimistic perspective.
I know.
But I do want to ask after that and share with us what gives you hope.
I think this moment gives me hope because after the year I have had, with many difficulties from personal health to external factors that I couldn't I couldn't defend myself or protect myself. Arriving here towards the end of the year, close to finish my thesis, feeling healthier, exercising, and being able to speak again, in a radio about myself gives me hope. I think my children give me hope. I have 3 kids. My eldest is 13. He just had his bar mitzvah. My daughter is going to have her bat mitzvah in March. And my youngest is 7. And they hope that they have on their eyes, and the questions that they ask me gives me hope that when I'm not here, they will be, and hopefully I'll have trained them in a way that they'll be good humans, the best humans that they can be.
Here. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Guido, and for sharing your world and your words and your perspective and your memories. It's been a delightful conversation.
Thank you, Ilana.
Thanks for joining me for another evening of Radio Architecture with Ilana Razbash. This live show was broadcast and recorded in the Radio Karim studio on Bunurong Country. You can replay the show wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in and supporting community radio. Take care.
You're tuned to Radio Karam, local community internet radio. This is Zvi Belling, aka Z6.